and welcome to All Creatures Animal Hospital puppy class. Sorry, I was doing a live and had a little bit of technical difficulty, but my name is Gabby, and I am one of the assistants at All Creatures Animal Hospital. So today we're going to be talking about leashes, collar versus harnesses, and kind of go into that. I apologize if you were watching before, and we had a little bit of technical difficulty, so we are going to start over. So again, welcome to All Creatures Animal Hospital puppy class, and my name is Gabby. So we're going to talk about collar versus harness. We'll talk about, leashes and just kind of go over that because I know that can be really confusing, overwhelming. There's a lot of different products to choose from and you want to know, what product is the best. So, is a collar okay to use? So, regular collar is perfectly fine to use. So, the most important thing is to make sure that the collar is tight enough where, it's not going to slip off your pup's neck, because we definitely want to keep them protected and safe with us, but not too tight where it's going to cause any damage. So when you're doing the collar, you should have it tight enough but still loose enough to be able to fit 2 fingers underneath the collar in between your pup's neck and the collar itself. So 2 fingers should be able to, fit in between, which gives it enough space where it's not going to do any damage, but it's also tight enough where it's not going to come off and not be able to protect them when you're out on walks and things like that. A big thing to do is also to change the collar size as your puppy grows, so definitely being mindful. With our smaller breeds, you may not have to change the collar size at all. You may have to maybe do it once. With our bigger breeds, that's probably going to happen a little more frequently, but just make sure you're constantly checking that. With some of our fluffier breeds, if you don't see the collar, you almost kind of forget about it. So just make sure you're constantly checking and making sure that, it's not too tight or have them become loose in any way, to make sure that you have the proper fit. It doesn't, damage, using the collar does not damage the trachea unless your pup is a hard puller. So we'll kind of talk about other alternatives, but as puppies, for the most part, it's really just getting them to learn to walk on the leash. You can definitely start with a collar. I've always used collars on my dogs. I've never had any issues unless they, get diagnosed with something like collapsing trachea in the future. And the doctor recommends that you only use a harness versus a collar. That is a completely different story. But, as far as doing just a regular collar, I think, they're great, especially for our, shorter or what's the word I'm looking for? Our longer haired dogs. Sometimes a collar, and we'll talk about it more, is better than a harness because sometimes the harness can mat the hair, if it's constantly on them. But we'll talk about more when we talk about harnesses. But it doesn't do any damage unless they're a hard puller, and we'll talk about other alternatives that you can use if that's the case. But collars are great to use. For tiny puppies, I put on here, sometimes you can find a ferret collar or a kitten collar that may fit a little better. And also, too, putting a bell on these little guys helps, too, so you know where they are at all times, because a lot of the time tiny puppies want to be underfoot, so attaching a little bell to it helps so you have an idea of where they are and you can hear them wherever they go. So that's really about, the collars. It doesn't matter whether it's leather, cloth, that's up to you. The metal ones, I'm not very fond of, like the chain linked ones that you can get. I just think that it's more comfortable to have either, like a fabric or a leather one, but that's kind of up to you on, if there's a certain style you like or kind of what you want to get for your baby. Harnesses, so they're great to use, especially for our pups that love to pull. So it just gives more support and equal pressure on the chest. So when they're pulling, especially like I found our little Arctic breed here, Husky, that, maybe doesn't respond, continues to pull even on the collar. Having that harness where, it pulls more, on their chest and kind of their upper shoulders and under their shoulders, it just gives more of a pull when you're trying to teach them how to properly walk. A harness is a better option. You do want to make sure that the harness is a good fit, so same concept as the collar, make sure that it's tight enough, but you can also still fit a couple fingers around it, or underneath it, I mean, to make sure that they can't slip out of it, because especially when you're training them as a puppy, you know, they put the brakes on and they'll slip right out of that, and that's when they can run away from you. Something can happen, so you want to make sure that that harness is a good fit. And then, like I mentioned in the previous slide, if your pup has longer hair, make sure you're brushing regularly in the area where the harness is to prevent matting, because if it is a full, you know, cloth harness, it's not just the little strand, or like the little small pieces of fabric. If it's a bigger piece of fabric, underneath there, you know, from the movement can mat the hair, so you want to make sure you're brushing regularly to avoid that, and then not having to have them completely shaved down because those mats are so tight. So the next thing we're going to talk about is what kind of leash should you get, because there are different kinds of leashes out there. There's ones that are like bungee rope that, you know, snap back, and there are regular leashes, ones that are 20 feet long, ones that are 6 feet long, and then there's retractable leashes. So we're going to talk a little bit about those. So leashes, I highly do not recommend using retractable leashes. And I think a lot of people feel the need to use retractable leashes because, you know, they want to give their dog, you know, the space to be able to go as far as they want to go to sniff. And I totally understand that. But at the same time, retractable leashes, especially if you're not paying attention, are not only harmful to you, because if your dog gets really excited with other people, other dogs, you know, they're going to run full speed ahead and you can end up getting dragged down to the ground. But also for other people, if there are dogs that are not friendly and your dog's on a retractable leash and you can't catch them quick enough to be able to hold them back, you know, it can create a dangerous situation for you or that dog that may not be as friendly. With cars moving, especially, you know, if you're in a dog park or anything, you know, there's bikers, people jogging, and having that extra length in the leash, you know, can just cause a lot of issues. So I don't recommend retractable leashes, especially during the training phase too, because you kind of need to keep them on a short leash to just understand how to walk on a leash at the beginning. So if you decide to switch to a retractable leash after they're leash trained, that's, you know, all up to you. If you want to use a retractable leash because you've always used them, that's perfectly fine. I just don't recommend them. I just think they tend to cause a lot of issues. So it's just easier to have a regular leash that you have more control over, especially for our big dogs too. So during the training process, you know, when you're getting them used to a leash, I highly recommend a short training leash that is roughly about 6 feet long. You can find these online. You can find them in the stores, PetSmart, Petco, all those things, easy to find. But just something that's not super long while you're getting them just kind of used to the process. You always want to keep your pup close to your side at all times so they learn to not walk ahead of you, they walk with you. So even if you have to maybe, you know, wrap the leash around you, you just want to keep your pup close to you so they kind of get the concept and they don't learn that they have to lead. You want them to be equal to you so that it kind of teaches them that, you know, they can't go too far away from you. It's just some structure for them. And helps them focus too, because they're not 6,000 feet in front of you chasing leaves, chasing things they're not supposed to. You know, when we're going through this potty training process, they need to really focus, so that also helps as well. And always have treats on hand. So treats, treats, treats. I can't stress that enough. Positive reinforcement is key. So I just put a picture on here, like some small training treats to have in a pocket, so that you can always encourage and reward your pup for doing what they're supposed to do. So when they're walking next to you, they're not pulling. They're doing what they're supposed to on your walk. You know, you can praise them and reward them with a nice little treat, so that they, you know, understand that what they're doing is right and they get a treat for it. So how do I get my puppy to walk with the leash? I know that's the biggest thing. So training when it comes to this. Get your pup used to the collar and or harness, and let them wear it around the house while you're watching them. So I stress this because you don't ever want to leave your pet unattended with a collar or a harness, especially just anywhere, whether it's free in the house or in their crate, because little things can get stuck. A collar can get stuck on a cage, can get attached to something. You just never know sometimes the weird things that can happen. So when you're home and able to keep your eyes solely on your puppy, get them used to wearing the collar and a harness. Especially even with collars or harnesses, I compare it, like, especially for these, ladies that know this, when you first started wearing a training bra, it's weird. It's just something weird that's on your body you never got used to, or you haven't gotten used to yet, so it's kind of itchy, it feels uncomfortable. Same concept for these guys with collar or harnesses. We do hear a lot when, their puppy is itching a lot, and a lot of the time, 95% of the time, it's not flea related. It's collar or harness related, because it's weird. They itch because they feel this thing moving, they feel something on them that they haven't had before, and it's just a weird sensation. So until they get used to it, it's going to be weird. So get them used to that. So it's not just, oh, when they go outside, they're wearing the collar or the harness. They're getting used to wearing it all the time. So it's not a big deal when it comes to you going outside. And obviously, as they get older and they get more used to it, you don't have to keep these things on all the time, but it's just things to socialize them with. Also, when you're watching them, attach the leash to the collar and the harness so they can get used to the weight of the leash, as well as something just kind of being behind them. Again, this is all new, especially if you have a 9-week-old puppy that's been at the breeder and then has come home with you or gone somewhere else and then come to you. They don't get walked on leashes. So, this is all brand new, so you just have to be patient with them. I think it's super important to teach your pup manners, to let you go out the door first and then they follow, especially for our Arctic breeds. So our Arctic breeds are definitely more dominant. We've talked in our other socialization videos about, practicing with having your pup on their back in a submissive position so they know that you're alpha. So this is just another thing that follows up with that, and teaching them manners to let you go out first and get them to practice sitting before you go out the door. Have them practice sitting when you're putting their collar or their harness on or their leash on, and just have those treats to praise them. I don't do a whole lot of training on all these different kind of manners and stuff, or, kind of, what's the word? Just at a loss for words today. I can't keep losing my train of thought. Obedience training. But if you want to do obedience training, you can get more into that and use those, little things, in your, including those in kind of your manners and getting them to wait before you go out the door. But if you're able to just kind of get the concept that they sit and they wait for you and then you go out the door, that just kind of helps and shows that you're alpha, you're in charge of this little pack on your walk. So that is super important, especially for our Arctic breeds, but I think it's important for all breeds, to be honest, because I think our little fluffy ones that are used to being carried all the time sometimes think they can just get away with doing nothing, and we want them to learn to walk on a leash just like our big dogs do. So super important for them to learn their manners and to let you go out the door first and then they follow type situation. If your pup puts on the brakes during your walk, use positive reinforcement. Again, have your treats on hand to encourage your pup to walk and come towards you. So you don't want to drag your pup if they refuse to walk. So we're not dragging them, maybe a little tug, and then encourage them, come on Fluffy, come on Mac, let's go this way, and have a treat on hand. And if they're food motivated, they're going to get up and they're going to want that treat. And praise them when they're walking so that they realize, okay, when I get up and walk, I'm getting a treat for it. But when I just lay down on the ground and do nothing, I don't get anything for it. So they just have to get used to it. It's weird. They're having this sensation of something around their body kind of tugging them. They're outside in this new environment where they've never experienced rain or wind or leaves falling on the ground, car noises. So it's just all new. So you just have to be really patient and just continue to practice and not give up and use that positive reinforcement. But the more that you practice with them and the more that you get them used to the collar, the harness, the leash, getting them outside, the quicker they will learn. Really try avoid picking them up and carrying them during the walk, or picking them up and taking them to where they're supposed to go, because then they're going to learn that, okay, well, if I sit here long enough, mom or dad is going to just pick me up and take me where we need to go. So they need to learn to use their 4 little legs and their 4 little feet to walk where they're supposed to go. So really try avoiding picking them up and carrying them. Really try to encourage them with their favorite treat to get them up to walk towards you and to continue to walk during your, outing. So other harness options, if your pup continues to pull and you're having a really hard time, even with the harness, they're still pulling, they're not acting how they should, all over the place crazy. There's a couple different other options that you can use. So instead of a harness or a collar, you could use a gentle leader, and they have 2 different versions that I've put here. So there's one that goes over the mouth, or not really over the mouth, but more over the snout. It doesn't prevent them from like barking or anything like that. It's very loose fitting for the most part, to where they can have all normal functions, but you just put it over their snout to be able to pull from the bottom of kind of like under their mouth, to just kind of give them more direction, almost like a horse in a sense, the same kind of halter or like things that they use when it comes to riding and guiding horses. And they also have a gentle leader, like an easy walk harness that clips from the front as well. So those are 2 different options that you can use for our more stubborn walkers. You can look online, and Google gentle leader, and they have different videos so you can see more of an idea of how it works. I used a gentle leader, the regular one that goes over the snout, for my Great Dane when we were just teaching him how to walk a little better, because he didn't realize how big he was and how strong he was. So it was just to kind of get him to be a little, just calmer on our walks. So those are great alternatives that you can try as well. If you have seen any other collars or harnesses that you have questions about, that you've looked into, definitely let us know and reach out. We're here to help you. We can help you, get the gentle leader, the harness fitted properly. If you feel like you haven't done it correctly, just ask us and we're here to help you. But I hope that this has helped and just given you a little more of an idea and some little tips when it comes to getting our pups to learn how to walk outside and use the leash and the collar and the harness. I know there's so many different products out there and it can be really confusing. So I hope this helped you guys, and just kind of helped you, guide you in the right direction. But like I said, if you do have any other questions, you want to make sure that what you have for your pup is fitted properly, just let us know when you come in for your next appointment, or even if you don't have an appointment, give us a call. We can help you. We can have you bring your pup by so we can check it out and see if we need to do any kind of adjustments. But I hope this helped. And again, if you have any questions, let me know. But my name is Gabby, and again, I'm one of the vet assistants at All Creatures. Thank you for joining my puppy class today, and I hope to see you next week.